This Sunday, July 28th, Venezuela is heading for presidential elections. And the sitting president is Nicolas Maduro. He is the president of Venezuela for 12 years. And in these 12 years, there has been a massive migratory flow from Venezuela to presumably the US. Around 7 million Venezuelans have left. Some people are saying 7.5s, around 8. I'm just giving a conservative estimation. So bad policies, socialist policies are creating humanitarian crises, and humanitarian crises are generating migration flows to other non-socialist countries.
And this is not new for Venezuela.
Not at all.
As far back as I can remember, they've basically been a communist country.
Yeah, well, they used to be the wealthiest country in all of South America because of their oil wealth, and they sort of recklessly spent money on welfare that they couldn't afford to continue paying because the oil money slowly dried up and the welfare got out of hand, which is a story true of most countries. And they've squandered that to now be one of the poorest countries in South America from being one of the richest due to their natural resources. So they've obviously had a very strong political fumble here.
Yes, and according to some sources, they have even larger oil reserves than Saudi Arabia. And also the whole country is based just on oil.
As I understand it, the communists took over the oil industry and inserted into it party loyalists who really screwed up the production of oil. And so the actual efficacy of the industry itself is the problem.
In a nutshell, communism doesn't work. So people are interested in this election, although admittedly a bit pessimistic. Because
are they taking any advice from like Brazil or Argentina? Because
you will see. You have anticipated something because Maduro is talking about the far right and about Milei.
Oh, okay.
So you will see.
Who's going to be the Venezuelan Bolsonaro? I'm up for it.
Okay, so they're saying basically that this is an election that if Maduro loses, Venezuela most probably will change orientation in foreign affairs. Maybe something will be done about poverty, and maybe something will be done about the...
Such a condemnation of their socialist policies, isn't it? That
I mean,
you have to say something will be done about poverty.
I haven't condemned socialist policies enough. You can never do that enough.
No.
If Maduro loses, maybe something will be done about poverty, and I mean that's his base.
Right. So what happened was interesting because there were two key opposition figures that were banned, that were incredibly popular and were banned. We will talk about them, but we will see about who is running against Nicolas Maduro. We are talking about an ex-diplomat called Edmundo Gonzalez, who is confident he can beat Maduro. Here is his face. People are, generally speaking, saying good things about him and that he has a good disposition. And something that to some philosophically minded people is going to sound nice, he wasn't particularly ambitious with respect to holding power. Yeah. So it's more like a call of duty for him, and that may be something good.
So he's not a communist.
Yeah, so we don't know much about him. Most people up until months ago, didn't know that much about him. He's a 74-year-old retired diplomat. He was the diplomat of Venezuela in Algeria in 1991 to 1993, and also the diplomat in Argentina between 1998 and 2002. He is considered to be a critic of Maduro, but a sort of conciliatory character.
Well, he's a diplomat.
Yes. And anyway, he is raising issues of corruption, poverty, and the human rights violations that take place in...
It's just like covering your eyes and throwing a dart at a wall. It's like, yeah, I've hit corruption, I've hit poverty, I've hit human rights abuses. Yeah, obviously. It's bloody Venezuelan regime.
Yes.
You know, sorry.
Yes. So we have some polls here. Obviously, every poll should be taken with a pinch of salt, and also there are some reasons to be skeptical about the processes that will take place. So the polls indicate that basically he is ahead of Maduro by a long margin.
Jesus.
So that is pretty resounding.
Yeah. Okay.
That's like North Korean election level predictions there, isn't it?
Okay,
Yeah, but I think they're in favor of him.
yeah. That's the blue one's him.
Yeah, so
yeah.
obviously now
Okay, yeah.
you can guess what is going on.
This is sort of Bukele levels of approval rating.
Yeah, close to them. They need
Yeah.
to pump those numbers up a bit.
Yeah.
I know that there is some. How can I talk about this when this is going out on certain platforms? I know Venezuela is known for having problems with election integrity, and there have been accusations in the past. I don't know the truth of them, that certain candidates, mainly left-wing ones, have been paying people to vote certain ways.
I don't know, but
I mean, that's literally all of left-wing political strategy.
It is really, yeah.
Like, we're going to
I don't have to be so euphemistic about it. They're pretty open.
yeah, so we can have this playing without sound here. Let me eliminate sound with extreme prejudice. Yes, and they're saying basically that from France 24, that uncertainty is overshadowing Venezuela's presidential vote on Sunday, with many fearful that incumbent Nicolas Maduro will try to steal it from the opposition candidate who is outshining him in the polls. Now you have also the supporters of Maduro who are saying that this is the evil US imperialists who are interfering with the polls, and all of that is a lie that you shouldn't believe. So you have the two different sides.
Evil US imperialists who got this great sea of people to come out to hear him speak.
Here we see Machado, who is one of the very popular politicians in Venezuela who was banned from running. And we will see here that she was a prominent figure who is not in the ballot due to allegations of not declaring some assets. She is saying that these allegations are illegitimate and basically baseless.
Yeah.
And
I can't believe the socialist government had lied.
yes, and we have a video here saying that she is basically persecuted in Venezuela.
No way.
And her human rights and political rights are being stripped, and her freedom of expression is being taken away.
I'm just going to take her at a word.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I mean, socialist regime in South America, I don't think they're treating people fairly, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yes. And here we have basically the opposition's campaign closure rally in Las Mercedes Main Avenue, and Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez, they are going to be there. Yeah. We have some footage, if people want to
massive crowds.
Yeah, massive crowds. Right. Now, we have here Nicolas Maduro, and I'll also show the crowds that have gathered here that are also big crowds. Yeah. So people don't say that we're showing only some of them. And he is basically urging people to vote against the far right, against the far right interference.
The far right's going to take away your welfare spending.
Yes.
That's going to be the main argument he's making.
Yes, you see here, he strongly condemned the far right opposition leaders who for the past decade have been promoting violence, sanctions, coups, and other actions to destabilize the government and ultimately overthrow him.
That's literally what the socialist governments did.
Yes. but that's the thing. Socialists love to victimize themselves.
Yeah.
In all cases, they're the victims.
But also, they just accuse the opponents of what they do themselves.
Well, socialism is basically an economic theory in, wearing the skin suit of what is actually morality. It's moralizing, and there's no economics there. All those people are going to be economically illiterate. They don't understand supply and demand and how prices are determined and all of that sort of stuff that is basic.
Or they could understand the economics of personal salary at the expense of public good. Yeah. Maybe they could understand this much.
These people may well be state workers.
That's actually just the government.
Anticipated the worries of some people, because that's what happens when if you massively expand the state. There are lots of people who are basically linking their own economic survival with your retaining of power.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add to something you said before about socialists. They just stick an auntie in front of what they're doing and they do the same thing they're accusing others of doing. But they're anti-imperialists now. So they can do anything they criticize.
Which is why we should take over this.
In the name of anti-imperialism and anti-far right thinking. Now here we have Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro closing out his campaign in front of a massive crowd of supporters, framing the election as a choice between socialism or fascism.
It's going to be socialism or capitalism, isn't it?
Why is he being introduced by what looks like a bunch of F1 engineers?
Maybe it's a pit stop there, changing tires. One thing that people will note if they play the video, I'm not playing it because they're singing a song and you never know with those copyright things. And also, it's a very atrocious song. They have lyrics that they're publicly exalting Chavez, and they say that he had a heart of fire. And also, they're having other songs. They're saying Maduro is going to win. It's going to be victorious. So
I'll never forget the bit of Chavez where he walked in some guy's shop and was like, "I like this shop. It's publicly owned now." It's just like, that's theft. That's just theft, you thug.
It's like a mafia boss.
It is literally a mafia boss.
Wait, so I need to think of this. So you mean that in Maduro's Venezuela, in Chavez's Venezuela, there was a business that was not state-owned?
Yeah, it was like some small business. He walked into it. He was like, "This is really nice. I'm going to nationalize it." It was on camera. It was on a documentary.
Probably owned by one guy.
Yeah, it was a little family business. It's just like...
He did the same with oil, I think.
Yeah, he did, yeah. And with farms as well.
Yes. So, and you have him here basically asking people an interesting series of questions here. You will see. He said, we will translate. He said, "Do you want Venezuela to become Argentina?
Oh, prosperous.
Do you want Milei to come?
And reduce your taxes?
Do you want a puppet president beholden to the US?" And they say an endless sea of Venezuelans say no. And we have here Combate, who is someone who is a communist from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So what is interesting here is that you could say that there are significant similarities between Venezuela and Argentina because they had massive economies at one point, and they were both wrecked by the same policies.
Yeah.
And Milei is the guy who's doing something about it.
And it seems to be working.
And it seems to be working. Maduro isn't doing anything. He's actually making things work.
But he is the problem.
And he is doubling down on the rhetoric, which is typical leftist.
But it's such a weird thing. Do you want Milei to come and balance the budget? Do you want him to come and stop inflation? Do you want him to come and make your country prosperous?
Make loads of bureaucrats
say the Venezuelans.
Yeah.
Do you want the terrible Chainsaw Man to come and poverty to plummet 9 points to 48.5%? Do you want him to lower inflation and eliminate it?
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Here is a really nice thread for Argentina. Long story short, capitalism works, socialism doesn't. The same thing that works for Argentina will work for Venezuela. And here, the same things that wrecked Argentina are wrecking Venezuela.
And moreover, Venezuela's just like being sat on a huge amount of oil wealth. Like, just ask the Arabs, man. It's like, "Are you guys socialists?" "No, we sell our oil at good capitalist prices."
And we have here some Western supporters who are trying to actually interfere on the internet and declare the support. We have self-proclaimed MAGA communist, MAGA patriot, Jackson Hinkle, who is just coming in and he says, "Venezuela is ready to re-elect President Maduro and continue fighting U.S. imperialism and Zionism."
I basically view this guy as a parody account.
This guy had a massive audience boost.
Yeah.
In a matter of just a few months, he had close to 2.5 million followers just in about...
Yeah.
Yeah, and he is going out and talking to a lot of people who are in the, generally speaking, BRICS camp.
Yeah.
We also have Roger Waters here.
Oh, yeah.
And he is talking about power to the people and how the Bolivarian revolution needs to carry on. And I watched it, so you have to watch it too. But let me be very careful. Could we just have zero sound, please?
That's very close to his face as well. That's proper boomer cam there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's
hear what multimillionaire Roger Waters says about.
Yes, so let me eliminate sound with extreme prejudice. And I want us to go to second 17, where the music has stopped and we listen to him. Okay, let's...
Unfortunate place to pause.
Yes.
6 years ago, when you had an attack upon your great country by Guido. Was that his name? He was a puppet of the United States government, as I recall. In fact, they declared him the president from Washington, D.C. Okay, they failed. That was 6 years ago, thank goodness. Okay, here we are 6 years later. There is another snake in the grass. She's called Machado, and she has another puppet. I've seen pictures of him. He's an old bloke called Gonzales. Okay, he's a sock puppet, but he is also representative of the government of the United States of America. Okay, so revolutions are difficult. The Bolivarian revolution is difficult, but it is succeeding. Okay, the reason I'm
like
sending
how
you
you're
this
cringing
message today
when you see this.
is to get you to
bonkers.
vote for Maduro, President
I always preferred
Maduro,
David
in the
Gilmour
election
personally.
on the 28th of July.
I will be very merciful and spare you the last minute.
Thank you.
Just what is the point of the Bolivarian revolution?
That you have lots of people,
Trapped in poverty with a dictator above them.
probably public employees who go on massive Roger Waters concerts.
Just yeah, exactly.
You have maximalist voices now saying that everything we hear about support for Gonzales is wrong and that Nicolas Maduro will win. Again, the same combative communist from Puerto Rico. You have another voice, Anatoly Kurmanev, who is saying something interesting here. He says that at the close of the campaign, Maduro showed he could still mobilize a sizable crowd despite a steady loss of support.
Yeah, the people he's paying.
Many attendees are public sector employees.
There we go. How did I know? Right? How did I know? I must be psychic. I must have
You had the
prophetic,
orb, the pondering
oracles.
orb.
Yeah, exactly.
The opposition hopes many will end up voting against Maduro on Sunday, an untested theory at best.
Could you imagine, Carl, if you were, going to some event and you bust in all of the Lotus eaters to support you? It's like, these are just my voters, They're...
If I had state funding, I would.
And I have a less than a minute clip that shows some really interesting thing about the Bolivarian revolution that Jackson Hinkle and Roger Waters are supporting. Let us have a look. For those who are listening, it says in Petare, Venezuela's biggest slum, loyalty to the socialist revolution is large. In the previous presidential election, 18 out of 23 districts voted for Maduro. The outcome is a massive blow for the opposition. And you have people here who will say he prefers Chavez because they care a lot for poor people. That's what happens. That's why people are for them. There are more people than... And they're saying basically, there's another person saying that Chavez knew how to show love.
But that's amazing because he's the one literally keeping you in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but in the name of the revolution.
But I love the way that we identify as poor people. So if you make us rich, we'll no longer be poor people. And Chavez won't show us his love anymore. And Maduro won't show his love anymore. And so we can't stop being poor.
But I do imagine in this sort of slum area, they don't get many copies of Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell.
Well, probably not.
So he probably doesn't realize that actually he's poor because of...
It's literally identity, though. Yeah. If we become rich, they hate us.
But imagine living in a place like this and living in a country that has a massive economic crisis and massive humanitarian crisis. And
I'm finding it easier and easier.
Yeah.
But also massive amounts of natural resources.
Yes.
Valuable natural resources. It's like, and that's why we have to live in a slum.
And they still say that the government cares for them. Now, obviously, there is some room for doubt there. In either case, it's either supreme lack of...
I like that you understate that
supreme lack of intelligence, or they're very much afraid and very much scared of declaring the truth. Because I really can't understand how people can live in situations like these and most of them just thinking that, no, it's not the government's fault.
Yeah.
Especially when they're sitting on the world's largest oil reserve.
Mad.
And we need to talk a bit about AOC, because here is the blame game of the left. The nature of the left is blaming everyone else for what they're doing.
But I do love this angle of attack. Well, you see, Venezuela is poor, not because of socialism, but because of American sanctions. So that must mean that socialism requires access to a capitalist country for them to even exist properly and not in complete slums, even though they still exist in complete slums. So the whole nature of socialism undermines itself by requiring capitalism to leech off of. Thank you, AOC. Truly, you are an economic genius.
Exactly. And she is blaming it on the southern border crisis. I mean, if socialism is that good, why do you need to migrate somewhere else?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's the capitalists won't give us access to their markets.
I feel like Venezuelans are at least some of the more legitimate refugees because their country has been ruined by a political class.
Yes.
Unlike, well, I actually suppose Mexico's a bad example as well, but I can't actually think of any now.
All of South America is racked with socialism. Terrible.
Forget what I said.
No, I've met some and they're very based and they're saying any good thing you hear about the Maduro government is just censorship and just state funded.
I went to
propaganda.
I went to Florida last year, and you meet so many Cubans who are just like, yeah, they're just socialist thugs. They're all liars. Don't believe them. They ruin us, and we hate them.
And I want to end with Francis J. Foster because I think he has some ties with Venezuela.
Well, his mum was Venezuelan.
Yes, the funniest joke of 2020 will always be middle class, privately educated comedians lecturing me about why socialism is great. Mate, my cousin lives in Venezuela and drinks water from a tank on his roof. I think there's a couple of flaws in your argument. And to people,
it's not real socialism, though, Francis.
Yeah, and to people who say this is so 2020, or this is so 4 years ago, those who forget history are destined to repeat it. Socialism doesn't work. Remember this.
Thanks for watching, folks. If you think we're doing a good job and you'd like to support us, you can go over to lotuseast.com and for £5 a month, help us keep the lights on because, of course, we are demonetized on YouTube. And while you're there, come and hang out with us at Lads Hour. The only way I can really describe this is like The View for Men, where the lads sit around and discuss a particularly interesting topic of the day. This particular one was on whether we should or should not cancel the left, and I won't spoil the conclusion that we came to. And go and follow us over on Twitter/X at lotuseaters_com.